That got you all into order very quickly. If everybody can take a seat, we'll start the energising first session of day 2. Did you all have a good night? Yes. Some better than others, I'll bet. Well, this is the start of day 2, and to get you all in the mood, we've got a fantastic guest who's going to give us a little bit of energy in this session. I'm delighted to be able to introduce David Ellington. David is an award-winning director of VS1 Productions. He won Best Actor for Deaf in the Deaf Oscars, and he was also part of the London 2012 Paralympic opening ceremony. David performs for Extraordinary Bodies, a partnership between Diversity and Cirque Bijou and Grey Theatre. So, without further ado, David.
I would be standing behind the podium signing, but I think it's better for me to stand here so everybody can see me, and this is what I'm doing. So thank you, Tony, for the introduction, for the locality of community. So I was brought up profoundly deaf. I grew up profoundly deaf. I'm being interpreted by Shula Gleason here at the front, so it's the voice you're hearing. So I'll be signing through the session. So if you're wondering a bit why that's happening, how that's happening, that's how it's happening. So, let me press the button. Okay. So now I'll explain to you a little bit about sign language and the history of British Sign Language, which is called BSL for short. So I'll just give you a summary of what's involved. So within British Sign Language, we have finger spelling. We can ask questions, we can greet, we can use numbers. And if you're thinking about what it means, in Bristol University, very proud that we're in Bristol now, they researched the language and they found that it is a bona fide language in its own right. It has syntax and grammar all of its own. And so, the same as you learn English at school, how English works, and the syntax of English and the grammar of English, BSL has the same structures. That's what they found at Bristol University. So it is a language in its own right. BSL was recognized not so long ago, but in 2013. There was a lot of campaigning around this, that they wanted BSL to be recognized. A bit the same as the Welsh language, and Scottish Gaelic and Irish Gaelic. So BSL is recognised now in the same level as those languages. So also, there's a lot of work now, a lot of fighting going on to have BSL become a GCSE language within school, which would mean people would learn BSL and then be able to communicate with deaf people out in the community. So imagine, actually, if you were doing that 20 years ago, you had a GCSE in BSL, you wouldn't have to be here today, right now, learning from me. So imagine that. That's why we're trying to make sure this happens in the near future. When you first meet a deaf person, you might kind of panic a bit and think, how am I going to talk to this person? But if you just speak naturally, clearly, and try, there are a few key things to think about. If you've got a big fluffy beard going on, that might be difficult for people to lip read through. If you make your mouth pan a little bit bigger, a little bit clearer. But some people talk like this, which makes it very difficult for a deaf person to get eye contact. So eye contact is another important thing as well. But be patient, be friendly, be polite, pleasant. If you're having difficulties, you can use a pen and paper and write things down. So you can write that between you and read the messages. So now, I said part of BSL is finger spelling, and this is to energize you and wake you up first thing in the morning. So I'm going to ask you, how many people are left-handed? Put your hand up. How many people are left-handed? Oh, okay, cool, quite a lot. Okay, good to know. So I'm asking just because, obviously, right-handedness is quite common, but left-handed is fine and dandy. So if you're left-handed, you use your right hand as like a piece of paper, and your left hand does all the work. And contrastingly, if you're right-handed, your left hand is like the piece of paper and stays pretty still, and your right hand does all the work. So I'm right-handed, so I will do it right-handed. But I will try and support people if you're getting a bit stuck, transferring it over to your left hand. So when we've finished, there's some handouts with the alphabet on them, and it says on them whether they're left-handed or right-handed, so make sure you pick up the right one. And you can pick those up at the end. So I'll do some teaching now of the alphabet. So, if you're right-handed, stick your right index finger in the air. If you're left-handed, stick your left index finger in the air. So all the fingers of your other hand that's not now in the air, all the other fingers are A, E, I, O, U. So your thumb is A, your index finger is E, your middle finger is I, your ring finger is O, and your little finger is U. So there you go, you've got 5 letters already. A, E, I, O, U. So just point to the end of your fingers. And this is it the other way around for the left-handers. Everybody got that? Everybody doing it? Marvellous. Okay, we'll carry on now. I'll try and make it bigger because there's a massive crowd of you out there. Usually if you're just having a conversation, it's quite small, but I'm doing it massively big for you. So, A, you all know how to do that now. Point to your thumb. B is like this, so you're making 2 kind of little circles. C looks like a C. So if you're right-handed, that's with your right hand. If you're left-handed, with your left hand. D looks like a big capital D. So make sure your finger and thumb are quite far apart. The next one is E, so you should all know that by now. So everybody do E. Marvellous. So that's a vowel, so that's your index finger. F is this, so 2 fingers and 2 fingers crossing each other, both facing down, if that makes sense, or both facing the same way. G is 2 fists on top of each other. H is a weird one. Yeah, so that's H. And the next one, everybody should know that one again. I, beautifully done, well done. I, so if okay, give your hands a shake. Ooh, everybody gets a bit stressed. Okay, marvellous. So we'll go back from the beginning again. A to I. A. Marvellous. B. C looks like a C. D looks like a D. E is a vowel. F, 2 fingers, 2 fingers. G. H. I. Marvellous. Very good. We'll carry on. So, J, start from where you were with I, and then make a J shape to the end of your thumb. Then K looks like a K, if you can make it look like a K, like David's doing. So one index finger straight, and the other index finger bent, and the little knuckle of your finger joins your upright finger. L, if you imagine your flat hand as a piece of paper, one finger makes it look like an L. M is if you imagine the 3 sticks of an M. And then N is 2 fingers. And then O, you should know, because that's a vowel. P, if you... Okay, I'm just having a bit of an argument with David going, it should look like a bit of a round thing at the end of your index finger. P. Q, looks like a capital Q if you kind of think about that's a circle, and then your other finger making the stick that comes out of it. Q. R is a bit of a back to front little r, if you think about it. Okay, relax your fingers. Okay. So we'll pick it up from I now, back to I where we started. So I, middle finger. J was making a J shape. K looks like a K. L. M is the 3 sticks of an M. N is 2 sticks of an N. O, you know, because that's a vowel. P, make sure your finger and thumb are quite together at the top of that finger. Q looks like a Q. R, sort of back to front little R. Okay, right, ready to go on. S is little finger to little finger. Make sure it's not the index fingers, little fingers. S-T. So then S-T-U, you should all know U, the last vowel. And then V, make sure it doesn't look like an N. So V is your fingers apart. W, interlace your fingers. X, looks like an X. Y, it kind of looks like a Y if you think of your thumb and finger. Make sure it's on the back of your hand. And you're drawing the downward stick of a Y. That makes sense. And Z also kind of looks like a Z, but it's missing the top horizontal. Okay, wow. Relax those fingers, relax the brain. So we'll go from R, S, little fingers, T, U is your last vowel, V, fingers apart, W, X, Y on the back of your hand, and then Z looks like a Z without the top line. Very good, well done. Okay, so now I'd like to ask you if you can spell your own name. So you'll have to do that, on your own, son, as it were. If you need a help, I guess you can stick your hand up, go for it. See if you can, and if you're really good, you can spell your second name. Okay. So let me check. So maybe spell your name to your next door neighbour, see if you can read what name they have. Test somebody near you, see if they can understand what your name is. Bless you. Has everybody had a go with that? Everybody got it? Found their names? Okay, if you're confident with it, stick your thumbs in the air so he knows that you're confident, you know your alphabet, you can spell your name. Brilliant. Excellent. Okay, so now, moving on a little bit, we do some more BSL. So, just to explain a little bit, in English, what is your name? But in the deaf community, you sign it kind of the other way around. So it'd be, my name is David anyway. So my sign name is David, like this. That's my sign name. But you might think, why? I used to work in a deaf school, and I used to have shaved hair up to the front, and the front had little sticky outy bits. So I was working in primary school, and the children were deaf, obviously, and they looked at me and they went, oh, your sign name is that, because of the little spiky bits at the front. So it's stuck with me ever since. So, and then secondary school, where do you come from? Oh, you come from New York. I was like, what do you mean? I'm not from New York. But, Statue of Liberty? The Statue of Liberty has, that thing in the book, and the crown. The crown with the spikes. Oh, hello, there you go, back again, sorry. Okay. Sorry, just sorting out the microphone. Okay, sorry, I'll go back to handheld. Sorry about that. So I'll carry on. So the English grammar says, what is your name? That's for English. But for British Sign Language, if I explain it, so your right hand or your dominant hand is in a fist, and then try imagine you're pushing that fist towards the person you're talking to. So that's the sign for your. And then name is, if you remember the N that we did, 2 fingers together. So use that hand shape and put it to your forehead, touch your forehead, and then make a kind of curvy out motion. So that's the sign for name. And then the sign for what is 1 finger, your index finger, pointing outwards, and you shake it backwards and forwards. So that's the order. So your name, what? Which is the equivalent of saying your name, what is it? So if you pair up, maybe choose somebody else that you haven't talked to, and then you can say, your name, what is it? And the other person will say, my. So now you're using the same fist shape onto yourself, my name, and then finger spell your name. Okay, so now you've got a whole conversation going, and then swap over and do it to the other person. Oh, is it? Perfect. Perfect, thank you. Cool. Oh, okay. Can you ask if he can get a photo of him with looking like he's presenting something? Oh, was it? Okay. How are you doing? How's it going? How do you feel? So that's the beginning of some BSL. Hold on. Can we have some hush now? Sorry. Can we have some hush so David can carry on? Thank you very much. I'm so glad you're enjoying it, though. That's great. Hold on. Wow, you have got the energy from this morning. Can we have a bit of hush? Okay, thanks. So how did you feel? Was that good? Hopefully that was good. So now I'll just add a little bit, bits of vocabulary. So if you want to say thank you, that's the sign for thank you. Just a flat hand coming away from your chin. That's the sign for sorry. Use that flat fist against your chest in a circle. The same sign for thank you is please, but you just have to say the word on your lips. That's goodbye. Wave a hand. It's not difficult. So I'm just see how much time I've got. Can I get somebody to bring my phone? Where's your phone? Oh, somebody got a mobile phone that we can use. David wants a bit of a selfie with all you guys in the background. So it's very good for his social media presence, I'm sure. So he's going to do a selfie, I think, in a minute. Then I guess you'll have to send it to him. Okay, so normally when with hearing people clap and show their appreciation. But for deaf people, they wave their hands because obviously they can't hear the clapping. So in a minute, I'm going to do a selfie and you're all going to clap in a deaf way. So I guess he'll do... Oh. Okay, are you ready? Everybody wave their hands in the air, deaf clap. Deaf clap. Oh, do another one. Beautiful, thank you very much. So that's it from me at the moment. I hope you enjoyed yourself and learned something and feel a little bit more confident with your sign language. Thank you very much.
Massive thank you, David. That was really great. Thanks a lot. Do that again. Great. Do you all feel energized? Yes, good. Hopefully you'll be able to practice your new skills around BSL for the rest of the day. So we're now straight into the next session of the program. If you don't know where you're going, check out the back of your ticket or ask a member of staff. Have a good day and see you all in the plenary later. Come on in and take your seats. If we can encourage the people in the corridor to come on in. Right, do we have enough people in the room? Yes, let's kick off because we have got a fantastic session to close our convention. I've been looking forward to this because we've got a great lineup of speakers. This session is all about giving you some even more inspiration, some ideas to take back home with you and to leave this convention on a high. So we've got a great panel of speakers. And it's really good because I don't have to do any work. I'm just going to introduce the compère of this next session. And we're delighted to have with us Stella Duffy, who is going to coordinate, she's going to talk some of her ideas, and she's going to compère the next session and coordinate and do this discussion. Stella, many of you will have heard of Stella. Stella is an award-winning writer, theatremaker, and she's co-director at the Fun Palaces movement. And she's a great person, a great advocate of community action. We've come across each other a few times over the last couple of years, in particular trying to force arts organisations to be more community-minded, which Stella has a particular passion about. Fun Palaces support local people to create their own community-led events across the UK and abroad using culture as a catalyst for growing community links. So we're great partners. We've got a lot in common in terms of what we're trying to do. So delighted that Stella is here. Stella.
Hello. Do you want to shout at everyone who's out there and not here? Go, come in! Not, because it's nearly panto season, right? Okay, so I'm serious. If you push those doors open and shout, come in! And the other thing I would suggest It's just in case you didn't realise that lunch isn't until 2 o'clock, you might want to say, come in and bring those bloody biscuits with you. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Hello. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for being here. Have you had a good conference so far? You're not allowed to say no, obviously, because Tony just introduced it. But have you had a good conference so far? Good. Fantastic. As Tony said, my name is Stella Duffy. Oh, look, that's me. Council estate girl, youngest of 7 from a really shitty council estate in southeast London. Got fucking OBE. Jesus. I can't... Seriously. Not only that, right, because I really had to do this, am I allowed to say yes to that? And then I spoke to, some of you might know his work, Neil Bartlett, amazing queer activist, and Neil, and sort of quite fancy, and Neil went, Stella, darling, how often have we wished to queer that area? You must go and you must take your wife. So I did. Anyway, but the thing is, I've worked in the arts for 35 years, and I got an OBE for services to the arts, but I know for a fact it had nothing to do with my 16 novels, 14 plays I've directed, and 65 or 70 odd short stories. It had to do with fun palaces, because fun palaces isn't just my work, because if it was, well, I'd have holiday pay and sick pay and compassionate leave. I'm a freelancer. I'm 55, and I've been freelance since I was 18 years old when I got my equity card. And I have had 2 cancers, and both my parents are dead, and a sister, and all of those. I have never in my life had compassionate leave or sick pay or holiday pay, but I do the thing I do because it's my mission. And I know that the reason you are in the room, whatever your reason for being brought here, is because community is our mission. And the thing about community is that so often it's talked about like them, you know, that community. So I identify as part of the, queer community, working class community. My wife is Indian Jewish, so a mixed race relationship community. Because of my cancers, I live in chronic pain, so health condition community, blah, blah, blah. And I talk like this because we moved to a timber town in New Zealand when I was 5 years old. And the other thing that I identify because of that is I grew up in a timber town that was 70% Māori and Polynesian. I grew up as a white minority in a colonized land. So what I know is I don't know what it feels like to be a minority in a land where all the white people, you know, don't run everything, because I'm not sure where those places exist. But I do know what it feels like to be a white person and looking around and not thinking that I would naturally lead, not thinking that just because I'm white, I'm going to step up and be the one who does. What I think that's given me is a little bit of awareness that everyone is capable of leading, that everyone is capable of making change, and that everyone needs all of our support to do so. And one of the problems that I find, and I'm sure many of you do, with the communities in which we are trying to work, is that so many people have been told that they're not the ones who get to step up. So for me, it's very personal. Could you put up your hand if you've ever felt like you don't belong? Leave your hand up, leave your hand up. Now look around the room. Yeah, right? Put your hand down, thank you. You know what? I think there might be 2 people in this country who don't put their hand up to that question. They went to Eton, they went to Oxford, and then they screwed the country. Everybody feels on some level like we don't belong. And that's why what we're looking for in community is places to belong. As I said, we moved to a small town in New Zealand, and I grew up with Māori and Samoan and Niuean and Tongan and Fijian and Swiss and Dutch and French people in my little town of 14,000 people, where everybody's mum and dad, like my mum and dad, worked at the mill. Everybody left school at 15 except for kids like me, who were the youngest of 7 and got the great privilege, therefore, to stay at school longer than my siblings. My siblings are just as smart, brilliant, and cool as I had the opportunities to be, but they didn't get the education. And one of the things that breaks my heart when people talk about what we should be doing for our communities, and I know, because this is your work, that you get this too, is that people say, well, the access is there, it's all open, but we know it's not. What the work that we're trying to do with Fun Palaces, which I will explain very quickly in a moment, is to take down some barriers to access. We're tiny, we are run by 3 people, we're all part-time because we never want to create a massive organization that takes all the money. We want any funding that we get to go directly to the communities that work with us. But what we're trying to do is get rid of all the barriers to access, and so we use culture as a catalyst for communities. But this is where I'm personally coming from, and I think that what's really useful, because we all get knackered, right? This work is full of burnout. I'm trying really hard to actually look in your faces, because I know you're tired. I see you. I see that you're tired. I see that the work you are doing with the communities where you work and live exhausts you. And I want you to know that you are seen and witnessed, because we need to do that for each other. No one's going to do it for us. We know that, right? So please believe that I see you and you see each other. But we have to do this personally to remind ourselves to find the energy to go back out there and do the work. So for me, this is where my personal comes from. Is anyone here from Aotearoa, New Zealand? Oh, okay. Has anyone here been to Aotearoa, New Zealand? Kia ora. You say kia ora back. It means to life. Okay, so this is how I would introduce myself were I speaking at a formal event in New Zealand, Aotearoa. Aotearoa is the Māori name, the Indigenous people's name for New Zealand. Ko Pohaturoa, ko Shooters Hill, na Monga. My mountains are Pohaturoa and Shooters Hill. Ko Waikato, ko Thames, na Awa. My rivers are the Waikato, goes down the middle of the North Island of New Zealand, and the Thames. That one on EastEnders. Ko Shore Savile Southern Cross, na Waka. You've seen the big canoes. The waka is how we get to a place physically, how our people came to a place. My dad was a New Zealander, joined up in 1939, working class boy, had left school at 14, did the thing that you do when you're a socialist in 1939 and joined up, was a prisoner of war for 4.5 years, met my mum, had 7 kids, moved back to New Zealand when I was 5 years old. Nor London, nor Tokoroa aho. Both of my places are London and Tokoroa. That's my small town. Ko Stella Duffy Ingoa. In Māori, you would introduce your place and your people and how you got there before you said your name and long before you said your job. Long before you said your job. Because all of us are of the community, right? All of us are made of the community in which we grew up, in which we came. So, little bit about Fun Palaces. We're 5 years old. I accidentally started this 5 years ago, meaning to do some other stuff, meaning to just do a one-off, and so many people joined in that it became a thing. I'm going to show you a bunch of things really quickly. Everything is available on our website. It's all there. As I said, we are only 3 people. If you want to get in touch with me afterwards, go to our website. My email and my phone number are both there. So, in 5 years, there have been 934 Fun Palaces made by approximately 33,000 local people, made by local people. We are not about flying in artists or scientists or even engagement workers to make the difference. We are about supporting local people to create what the hell they want to. With 465,000 participants, we didn't quite get 500,000, and I kind of wished I had, but it's not about the numbers, except when it is, and we all have to deal with funders. In 15 nations, but primarily in the UK, because that's where we're based. I know these are loads of numbers. I just want to show you this bit, right? Look, so the maker teams are the people who joined together to make a Fun Palace. In 2017, we're just getting in the 2018 data, because these people are ordinary people with other jobs or no other jobs and caring responsibilities or a dozen other things to do. We are not getting our data back quickly from them. They're too busy. It's going to come in drips and drabs, but we'll have it by next March. But what we know about 2017, 64% of maker teams included people from an ethnic minority. And people from the arts sector looked at me and they went, "Oh my God, Stella, how did you do that?" And I know they don't all talk like that, but you know. And I went, we did that by saying yes to everybody, and it's not good enough, and we want 100% of our maker teams to include people from ethnic minorities, right? But that is phenomenal in terms of culture in Britain. But it's not phenomenal if you get rid of those stupid words, excellence and quality. Excellence of engagement. Quality of talking to human beings, not excellence of the product you're going to produce, or quality of the product you're going to produce. It's not about product, it's about process. We don't care if people even end up making a fun palace. We just want them to talk to each other. God, you can hear funders turning in their graves when I say that sort of shit. But also, look, 21% of maker teams included both people under 18 and over 65. How cool is that? By accident. We do not set out to be intergenerational, but if you say, when we say community, we literally mean geographical areas, right? If you say to a geographical area, do you want to make something in your own community, can we support you? You're going to get loads of different people wanting to join in. Another quick one. How do I do that? How do I make the next one go? It's not happening, Steve. I'm pushing the button. I was pushing the wrong button. Sorry, Steve. Mea culpa. It's too Catholic. Anyway, okay, look at this, people. You are probably the only people I've ever not had to explain the index of multiple deprivation. And deciles, too. Right? So in 2017, almost 40% of fun palaces were made in the two most deprived deciles in England. As you'll probably know, Scotland and Wales measure it differently, so we just went with the England stats. This is all available on the website. What pisses me off enormously is there's these rich buggers, right? And only 2% of them joined in. I think it's because we're always at the beginning of October, and maybe they've already left to go and live in, I don't know, somewhere sunny for 5.5 months. But I think it's going to get better over time. Okay, these are the kinds of activities people do in a fun palace. Heritage, our history, is growing and growing and growing because everyone can contribute to their own fun palace, right? What I love here, the makers, the lead makers, are the ones in a community who put up their hand and go, yeah, all right, I'll fill in the form, right? So they can be the head of a residents association, or the bunch of young people where someone's, I don't know, doing a Duke of Edinburgh award, or someone's got a tiny bit of, local funding, 50 quid here to make something happen in this space where nothing ever happened before. The space where nothing ever happened before. I think what we mean by that is the space where the authorities didn't notice that anything ever happened there before. It's a little bit like placemaking, isn't it? Could we stop placemaking? Could we acknowledge that places are made and just shine a light on the brilliant people there? That's all we're trying to do, right? We're not saying that people aren't already doing phenomenal stuff. What we're saying is, if you join in with us, and we can only do this one weekend a year because we don't have the resources, nor do we want to become this great big organisation, but we can help shine a light on the phenomenal stuff that happens. That's exciting to me. But bearing in mind, these people are already slightly engaged. 53% think it opens up new opportunities for them personally. I love that. Okay. Anyway, you could join in with us next year if you wanted to. I'm going to show you a very short film. How much time have I got, Joe? Fantastic. Perfect. I'm going to show you a very short film, and I'm going to show you how it works. If I push this button, I think the film will work. Voiceover on this, but you can't. So it's possible to hear the people talking. If you can't, I'm going to read what they said for anybody who's visually impaired.
They opened the gates and in they came, and they never stopped. Hundreds and hundreds of people I've never ever seen before.
Ever since we opened the doors yesterday morning at 11 a.m, we have been overwhelmed by the people coming in, by the smiles on their faces.
What they have done, I think, is remind people and provoke communities to think about what's relevant for them.
It represents to me the coming together of a community, a very diverse community, to actually enjoy what they actually have within their very midst.
We really enjoyed the cohesion of the different community groups that have been involved. For us, it's helped us to reach new groups, new people.
In our community, we have such talent, and just our users have such talent.
We're all working in a time of real challenge financially, of being squeezed in many, many ways, but I really think that in a way a gesture such as Fun Palaces is more important now than ever.
What I would say, Fun Palace, if you engage 10 people, you've already won. So you can't fail. It's a winner.
We've got a lot of people who are maybe crafting on their own at night somewhere, or building or hacking or doing digital stuff on their own, and it's about bringing those people together, finding like-minded people, skill sharing, and everybody getting together and being like the heart of the community.
An opportunity to engage with a different type of person than they might normally in their normal environments.
It gives us license to work at a really grassroots level, and that's what I absolutely love.
I love learning, and I love getting involved in things that I haven't done before, or thought about it and I've never done before, and the Fun Palaces gives you the opportunity to do that.
Most of the workshops happening today, most of the activities, our Radical Fun advisors, they're all members of communities that we've never worked with before. We now have a relationship with all of these different communities and audiences, and we can just build on that.
It's a really good opportunity to meet new people. It's good. It's something nice. I would like to be involved every year if I could.
We've been talking with people who have said this is their first time in a museum. So it really feels like, you know, something has opened up for them. This is a space that they feel welcome and accepted in now.
Because there's no question of payment or money or what you can afford. People just come along and join in. They join together and say, how can we solve the problems? And this is what communities and societies really need to be like.
I love that donkey. Okay, so the point is, they happen anywhere the local community can do it. It might be the big shiny building. Sadler's Wells did make a Fun Palace this year, and I'm delighted they did, but I don't really care. Because they've got all the money, they've got the shiny building. What excites me? Trenear Estate and Penzance making a Fun Palace of their own on their estate, and they invited in the museum and the library. Instead of the shiny building saying, come to us, the estate gets to take control and they bring the people in. How do you make a Fun Palace? By bringing what people are passionate about. So I would like you now to turn to the person beside you. I've got 3 minutes. We're going to do this in 2.5. And tell them a thing that you could share with another person as a learning, right? So for example, if you're brilliant at making Victoria sponges, if you know that you have the perfect recipe for whatever is your best local dish, yeah? If you're an astronomer, if you're a particle physicist, if you're a knitter, any of those things could be shared in a Fun Palace. Dance, singing, the lot, it always happens. Anything that might count as culture, which is what we talk about being just what get people talking to each other. So just turn to the person beside you and tell them. So for example, right, I'm 55, I've had 2 cancers, I don't drink anymore, but I can still do this sober, right? And I can teach people how to do this. There was the splits, darlings, at the back. I can teach people how to do that, okay? So a thing you can share. If you're the expert, brilliant. If you're not an expert, also brilliant. Turn to the person and go, really fast. Tell me when I've got a minute. Finished? Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you because I've got 1 minute. Okay, what I want to say about this, that that whistle? Shush. Shh. Perfect, thank you. Okay, what I want to say about this, A, you are smiling at each other. All we do in our workshops is we ask people to share their skills and share them a bit more and share them a bit more. You're smiling at each other. You have talked to maybe a stranger, maybe someone you know, but maybe you've revealed something they didn't know about you. Has anybody heard anything that surprised them? Yes, the one back there. Shout it out for me. Didgeridoo lessons. Do we have any other didgeridoo players in the room? Fantastic. So it's you. At your local fun palace, you would bring a didgeridoo, or you might find somebody who was a craftsperson who could teach how to make it. You might find a bunch of people who are associated with native Australians who could share that with them. Everyone has a little skill they could share. And one of the most amazing things about saying yes to everyone's little skills, as you can imagine, the phenomenal people who get to step up and make a difference locally. And then they keep talking. Okay, I'm shutting up now. I'm on time, aren't I? Mega win. Okay. I'd like to introduce to you Carolyn Hassan. I've met Carolyn before. She is phenomenal. Bristol people will know her work from Knowle West Media Centre and Bristol Living Lab. Carolyn's got for us Technology and Digital Inclusion, Mark II. That should work, I think.
So I have to say, I followed Stella once before, and it was totally intimidating. So bear with me. I am not going to do the splits. So I want to talk about what we've learned over 25 years. I hope that you've all enjoyed this conference. Maybe some of you have been to visit Knowle West Media Centre and also the factory, our digital manufacturing and makerspace. And I hope maybe some of you have also seen our TAM, or our We Can Make home, that's next door to the community centre. It's a test space for local people to try out this new home, but it's also a successful Airbnb, generating significant revenue for the community centre. So that's a bit about the places that makes up Knowle West Media Centre. But what we are is actually a place where local residents, artists, technologists, businesses and the public sector organisations can come together to co-create ideas and things. Things are really important, as Stella, I think, has been intimating. So, what are some of the things that we have learned? Well, we know that building face-to-face relationships with people is key to achieving action and bringing about change in communities. So although I'm talking about digital, we start with people. So, we all probably use Facebook, Instagram, and maybe Twitter to communicate. So one of the key features of technology for us is about supporting better communication. That's communication between generations, as in this first image over here, which is actually Kenny, a local Knowle West resident, and Alice, a soft robotics resident at our factory, and I don't know what that is either. But I do know that they are having some very interesting conversations and have collaboratively made this laser cut image. So it's actually about opening up new kinds of communications and conversations. So it's also about communication in communities, between communities. And this other image is actually a piece of work that we're doing at the moment that is using digital manufacturing, sensing technologies to create a sensor-activated description of what's going on. And that voice that will come out of that box can change. So it's an interesting way of communicating with passers-by. So it's about... Did I just skip one? No? Good. So it's about communicating. And it's also about providing access to new experiences and exploring how people would like to use technology to enhance their lives. So this woman on the right, who we've been working with, the team have been working with, had never experienced flying on a plane, and that's what she really wanted to do. So the team introduced her to virtual reality, and she got a huge amount of joy out of that, but more importantly, it was about the start of a conversation about how this kind of tech, which seems very remote and removed from daily life, how it might enrich our lives. So we also use technology to communicate ideas and information about smart technologies in homes. So this is our mobile home, smart home, that we made with Bristol Energy Network and a brilliant artist outfit called Mufti Games. So this was wheeled around, and conversations take place around data. Really boring. Most people glaze over when I start talking about data. But they don't if that data enables them to see how they might save energy and save money. So it's communication, but it is also about co-design. How do we actually build the tech we want, the technology, the Internet of Things devices that we want, rather than having to consume the tech that somebody else thinks we need? So this little fella on the right here is our damp-busting frog. And this is a co-designed temperature and humidity sensor that we designed with people to help them identify whether their homes were suffering from damp or condensation. And the ladybirds have also been co-designed through a series of workshops, events, and these are air quality sensors. So these are both the quality of air and the conditions in our homes are really important issues for people who probably don't engage or think about how technology might help them. So we start with what is the issue, what is the challenge, and how do we design something that might help people to know more and also to create more behavior change. So from this kind of project, we can start to explore with people things like data. Right, I can see I'm getting a 2-minute warning. Quick, I've got loads more. So it is also about making. So this is, so we do, as you will have seen from our factory, we have lots and lots of digital tools. Now they're really exciting, but it's actually about how do we actually make our communities? And this is a group from Stockwood who've been making signage in our factory to welcome neighbours. So how do we actually physically make? For making this kind of thing, we make furniture. So actually the important thing about this is that we're mixing craft skills with digital skills. So the top image is of a digitally manufactured or cut out on a laser machine and engraved on a laser machine, cut with a CNC machine to make the furniture for the TAM home, but we also have been incorporating ceramics and textile printing. So mixing craft and digital. Which leads us, of course, of making homes. So We Can Make, which is one of our projects, is a collaboration between Knowle Media Centre and White Design. And this is about building locally, using sustainable materials, prefabrication, and addressing local housing need in the community, but using the digital technologies to help us to do that. So finally, it's also about skills, nurturing imagination and a can-do attitude. And that's exactly what we're doing with these young people. We make sure that we're teaching them skills in a social space, not just in front of a computer, encouraging creative skills alongside the technical skills. And this combination and this encouragement to experiment and sometimes fail, to be bold and to seek solutions are the skills that young people need if they are to be able to find the jobs of the future and contribute to their communities. So, in summary, tech can be good if we use it purposely, and I've shared some ideas about how we are doing this. It can be used to improve communication and support building relationships, to co-design the tech to solve the challenges we face, as part of physically making our communities, to support new enterprise and stimulate business ideas locally. And it can be part of our expanding and collective and individual skill set, whether that be to help us find the jobs we want or build the homes we need. Tech is part of our lives. It's all around us, and we believe it provides us with the opportunities to create the change that we want to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. talk to Carolyn later, particularly if you're local, because I'm sure there's many links that if you haven't made yet, you'll want to. I'd now like to introduce David Robinson. I said to David earlier, is community worker right? Because David's got so many decades of experience that actually there's a bunch of titles. And he went, no, that is what it is. I'm like, yeah, I just wanted to beef it up because people go, oh, community worker. I promise you, this man's community worker is the core of the work. David Robinson.
Thanks very much, Stella. I want to tell you 7 stories this morning, which might be a bit challenging in 7 minutes, but I promise you they are very, very short stories. Really just observations that I've scribbled down as I've witnessed them during the course of the summer. The first one's about my dad. The doctor sits on the bed, takes my elderly father's hand between her own, looks him in the eye and says, "Good morning, Dennis." He looks up, he listens, he smiles. Most of all, he takes notice. He cooperates in his own care. Not an hour later, a nurse appears, lifts his arm and begins taking his blood pressure. Not a word. "I'm not dead yet," he says, without moving. He refuses lunch. I wonder at the difference. My second story. This evening's TV news story about a US high school shooting concludes with background on the perpetrator. Neighbours, fellow students, lower school contemporaries are pressed for memories. We hardly knew him, they say. Kept himself to himself. He was a loner. I think I've heard this news story before. My third story. I realise on Sunday that my credit card is missing. I search everywhere for 2 days before beginning the tedious business of cancelling and ordering a new one. Suddenly I remember Morrison's. Sure enough, it was found 5 days ago. I've done the weekly shop in the same store for 20 years. I know from the mail shots that they know how much they know about me. Not least where I live, my phone number, my email address, and how much they, quotes, value our relationship. Next Friday, I will try Tesco's. Finally, my friend is singing this morning. Her son has a job. Autism has disguised a willing personality and deterred other potential employers. The new boss is a neighbour, a friend of a friend. We agree it's a good hire. Now, at first glance, those stories are very, very different, very random, but look deeper. Although the settings are very different, a hospital, a neighbourhood, a business, a school, they're all about relationships, about what happens when they work and about what happens when they don't. Now, I believe that we live in a world of transactions, a world where we are less and less good at real relationships. I think we need to learn how to behave differently in this world and to benefit from progress in ways which don't dismiss our humanity or diminish it, but sustain and enrich it. We have to learn how to fundamentally rethink how Britain works. So imagine for me a place where real relationships are the central operating principle running through everything we do. A relationship-centred hospital, business, school, neighbourhood. Now think about your place, the place where you work, the place where you live. How would it change if you put that idea, real relationships, at the heart of what you do? To start off, I want to give you 3 suggestions, each one with a story of their own. The first, my social worker friend told me about 2 elderly women living independently, and both caught the flu in winter of 2017. Both stopped eating, forgot their regular medication. For the first, this began a spiral of decline. She has now moved permanently into a nursing home. The second has been in an allotment group for many years. When she fell sick, other members cooked meals, ran errands, checked daily. Now she's back digging onions. What is the suggestion and the lesson that flows from this? Well, that we shouldn't think about having fun together as a kind of fluffy extra, as policymakers usually do, but as a fundamental part of public policy and of what organisations like ours ought to be doing. One of the respondents in the little film that Stella showed us talked about radical fun advisors. What a wonderful idea. We all need one of them. My next story, a suggestion attached to it. At the doctor's today, I made my appointment electronically. It's like a cash machine, quick and simple. I've had a busy day and I'm glad of it. But I notice others still queuing for the receptionist. I ask why. All the queuers have a similar answer. I like a little chat with Maureen. The lesson? That customized transactional services are brilliant for some of us, some of the time. But never forget that people's needs are different, and never lose the relational option. And my final story today, I pass 2 schools on my journey today. The first has a line painted across the playground at the gate and a notice asking parents to go no further. The second has a welcome sign on the railings, picnic tables beneath an awning, and parents still chatting while their children play long after school has finished. The lesson, well, it's obvious, isn't it, that the physical environment, not just buildings, but the whole environment, shape our behavior. Plan it with care. So I've asked you to imagine a place where relationships run through everything we do. I've made 3 suggestions about the kind of things you might consider. Of course, there could be many, many more. In essence, in all this, I'm talking about design, about how we can design relationships into the places where we live, the services we offer, the organizations that we run, and about how we can inadvertently, perhaps, design it out. Change the design process, and we change the outcome. So at Shift, we've been working on what we call an open framework for relationship-centered design, building a community of practice and the tools and facilities that enable us to both jointly create and share those principles and design for relationships. I'd love to hear from anybody who would be interested in helping us to prototype and co-produce that work. But mostly I'd like you to think about your place, to think about the design of what you do and how you do it, and to think again about making real relationships the central operating principle. Thank you all.
Thank you, David. Schools with picnic tables. It's so simple and it's so huge. Yeah. Making places for conversations. It's everything. So I'd like now to introduce, by pushing this button, to make Rebecca's name show. Okay, so Rebecca Trevalyan is from the Library of Things, started out as a South London, I'm a South Londoner, born of a South London mother, as a South London thing, but growing much bigger now. How to dream big and test small. Joining it all up, thank you, Rebecca.
Just going to channel my inner Stella for a moment. Help me, Steve. Big push. Hey, that way. I was a student when I first started Library of Things. Like many people in big cities, I didn't have a lot of spare cash. I was living in a tiny box room. I didn't have a lot of storage space. And I didn't particularly know my neighbors. I'd noticed a lot of the spaces near me that where I might meet my neighbors had started to close or were lacking in a bit of life, like the pub at the corner of the street and the library near me. And then there were people like my housemate, Andy, who would keep on ordering, with 2 taps of his iPhone, ordering more and more cheap tools and gadgets from Amazon. This probably sounds familiar. And our house started to pile up with stuff, and it got so ridiculous that in the end he started paying 50 quid a month for a self-storage unit to put all his stuff that he'd never use again anyway. And I was like, this is weird. This is weird. There's got to be a better way of doing things. We've got to build something better. And I started dreaming, what happens if we make borrowing useful things better than buying them? What happens if it's more affordable, more convenient to borrow something than to buy it? What happens if it's more socially rewarding because you meet your neighbor as you borrow something, you learn a new skill? And of course, it's going to be more environmentally friendly to borrow something than buy it. So with that, myself, some friends and neighbors started testing the idea of a library of things, this idea of a shared treasure box of useful things like drills and steam cleaners and strimmers and sound systems and projectors and waffle makers. This shared treasure box of useful things installed in local community hubs like libraries and park buildings and workspaces and pubs. How cool would that be? We started pretty small. We started in a side room in a library on our high street. We wheeled out every single Saturday for 3 months. We wheeled out a small ramshackle collection of items, slightly rusty tea urns, some old school sewing machines, some wallpaper strippers that had frankly seen better days. And we just tested. We invited local people in and said, hey, what would you borrow? Add your wished thing to the wish list, the community wish list. And we started to build up this bank of knowledge around what things people would want to borrow and why, and how much would they be prepared to pay. But we weren't about to bring in the masses with this version of Library of Things. We weren't about to get people to say, do you know what? Sod Amazon, let's all go to West Norwood Library of Things and borrow these things instead. That wasn't about to happen. So when there was a queue of people on our final day in this test that had come to us and said, don't leave, we need to borrow a sat-nav and a GoPro and a gazebo, we didn't feel that bad about saying, sorry guys, we've got to close. We need to build something better. And today I want to celebrate that attitude of testing small but dreaming big and bringing your community along with you, because that's not always easy, right? It's easy to design and test and change a kind of software prototype, but when you're doing it in real life, in real communities with real relationships, that's a different ballgame. And that's a lesson I learned during Test 2. Test 2, we crowdfunded £15,000 from 250 people in West Norwood in this neighbourhood. We built 2 shipping containers and built this team of 10 volunteers. We spent 3 days a week over 18 months and 800 borrowers, lending out 400 different products, testing them all, seeing which ones worked, seeing which ones were actually borrowed, not just the things that people said they'd borrow. And so from these 400 items, we whittled them down to the 50 greatest hits, because we realized a whole load of things, even if they were popular, they might not be feasible to lend them out. So for example, tents, absolute nightmare. People would bring them back muddy, pegs were missing, got drunk at the festival, sorry. And we're like, right, sod tents aren't included. Barbecues, ditto. Once they've been used on that like great jerk chicken party, that they're gonna smell like that forever. So barbecues just didn't make the cut. So my next slide shows some of our top 10 things, not all of them because they didn't fit on the slide. But any guesses as to what made the cut? Strimmer, drill, ladders, chainsaw, not allowed actually, health and safety nightmare. We got some of them right. Strimmers, drills, sewing machines, projectors, but coming in at place 1 and 2, pressure washer and carpet cleaner. Certainly in South London anyway. Maybe they've just got particularly dirty homes. But this is what we learn. And this became this like process of testing everything and narrowing it down to the things that really worked, the things that we could really focus on, was fundamental to getting our business model viable, and meaning that borrowing was starting to slowly become better than buying. So those were the things. I said there were a group of 10 volunteers. There was myself and 2 directors, and we were starting to put in sort of 20 to 30 hours a week in volunteer time, and this might sound familiar to some of you. We were trying to work part-time jobs to cover the bills at the same time and rattle off funding applications and all sorts at the same time. And we did have a lot of fun. It was like I enjoyed that volunteer experience. I ended up testing the kite with 8-year-old Katya, who looked so excited about flying a kite for the first time. It looked like she was going to take off with it. And made friends with Dave, who lived locally. He got so excited about the fact we'd got this battery-powered strimmer that meant he could strim his allotment. He'd never been able to afford to get one, that he brought us in fresh veg every week. Built up this big community of people. But also started to find the the way we were doing this volunteer-powered model, meant it became increasingly difficult as more and more people started borrowing things. The whole operation just took forever. And I spent hours and increasingly days elbow deep in carpet cleaner grease, cleaning the carpet cleaner, and like fixing the hedge trimmer cable, and having phone calls like, you borrowed this steam cleaner, have you got the detail nozzle anywhere? Yes, the detail nozzle. Yeah, it didn't come back with the steam cleaner. Just increasingly all of that kind of work that started to become unfeasible as a group of volunteers to deal with. And so we had to make a difficult decision. Myself and my co-directors sat down at the pub one night and looked each other in the eye and said, we can't scale this as it is. We've had interest from groups, community groups, councils, property developers, housing associations, even IKEA saying, hey, can you help us start a library of things? This is a really cool idea. Can you help us start and run one? But we couldn't. We couldn't with this particular model. So we had to make a difficult decision to close down version 2 and bring our community along with us. And we just said, guys, thank you so much for your support, but we need to build something better. And it was a difficult conversation. We were closed for 6 months. We relocated a mile up the road where there was an opportunity to reopen and redesign how Library of Things worked. And on the whole, there were a couple of ranty emails I received back, but generally everyone was super supportive and just said, do you know what, go you, if this is what you need to make it work. So test number 3, I'm done with my 7 minutes, so this is going to be a rattle through. But this is how it works now. Group of local people. This is Joe in the yellow t-shirt, co-chair of Crystal Palace Transition Town. Group of local people crowdfund £10,000 to get a Library of Things started in a new neighborhood. We come along, we install our smart borrowing kiosk where you can come up and rent a carpet cleaner or a waffle maker or a ukulele, like you can rent a Santander bike, a city bike, or some of the smart rental cars you see now. It means that it solves those problems of the volunteers having to do the heavy lifting. It means volunteers can do meaningful activities like skill sharing and outreach. So once that £10,000 is raised, the borrowing kiosk is installed, you join as a member, you sign up for, you pay £1, you invite your friends and neighbors, you reserve items online in advance, or you just pop into your local library or community hub, you collect the items you want, you pay per day for those items. It's a pound for a hammer, £5 for a bread maker, £20 for a carpet cleaner for the day. And then you get invited to participate. So the transaction of borrowing leads to a kind of transformational experience where you come in and you come to a DIY class or a sewing class, or you volunteer your time as a fixer or an ambassador. And now this version's going to earn £25,000 in the year, create 2 part-time local jobs, 100 light touch volunteer opportunities over the year, save 11 tons of waste from landfill over a year, and bring 5,000 extra visitors into the local library each year as well. So we're excited. It's getting better than buying. Borrowing is not yet better than buying, and we do still need to build something better. So that's what we're doing. We're making it a little bit shinier, a little bit more able to scale, and hopefully we'll soon be helping communities around the UK to start and run Libraries of Things where they are. And it'll be a joy to run, hopefully. Just wanted to finish by saying that all sounds possibly quite tiring. We've got to be better than Amazon, or we've got to be better than the other mainstream options. But I think I just want to acknowledge that over the last 24 hours, I've been reminded that we have already built something better. We have already created more meaningful, more empowering, and more connected lives for hundreds, thousands of people around the UK. So hats off to you guys. We've already built something better. Let's keep dreaming big, testing small, and growing it to reach more people around the UK and beyond. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. I have a bunch of takeaways from that. One is be less Andy, be more Rebecca. Sod tent, which, frankly, could we all just tell my wife that so we never have to go camping again? And the possibility of saying it's okay, none of us ever get anything right first time. You know, it's always okay to go, yeah, that worked well enough. Now how can we make it better? Finally, in this section, I'd very much like to introduce, oh, that went back to you. Let's go forwards. There we go. Miriam Delogu. Now, Miriam said, this is important that I tell you this about her. For the past 7 years, Miriam has been working in a sunken roundabout in the city centre of Bristol. She's been the project lead for the Circle, and she needs you to know that it was 7 years in a sunken roundabout. Miriam Delogu, please.
I'm very nervous, so please bear with me. In 2011, the St. James Spartan Roundabout, also known as the Bear Pit, was voted the single worst area in all of Bristol. Years of fear, crime, neglect, and antisocial behavior gave rise to this title, and very few believed it could ever change. In 2012, I began working there, making coffee at the back of a van, and within 4 months, that business pulled out. It was a hostile place. Commuters rushed through, heads down, headphones in. Most people didn't even notice we were there. But as I had been standing there 10 hours a day, having the occasional conversation, it hit me how important our presence had become to many. I knew the only way to make real change was that I had to be there full-time to meet the needs this neglected space was suffering from, and to fundamentally understand what on earth was going on. In 2013, I opened Bear Pit Social, a cafe with one purpose: to bring people together using coffee and food. We would have CEOs, nurses, students, members of the street community, lawyers, couples, children, all on this platform at the same time. We would play music to the likes of the Jackson 5, and people would do little shimmies on the decking, and we'd laugh and build what I call 2-minute relationships. People would talk to each other, exchange stories. It was magic. It was social integration at its best. In 2015, I was physically assaulted. But out of that, we inspired the creation of the Bear Pit Stakeholder Group. For the first time, we had council, police, drug and alcohol agencies, local businesses in a room to talk about the problems and to find solutions. For the first time, the people who had the power to effect change were in the same room together with a common purpose: to help us make the Bear Pit a safe and welcoming destination. In 2016, we merged with other 2 businesses to be stronger together, creating Bear Pit Bristol, a social enterprise set up to deliver social change through food and community, a way to enable us to have a formalized agreement with the council. At the beginning of 2017, the work of the Bear Pit Stakeholder Group had paid off. The Bear Pit, for the first time in decades, wasn't even in the top 20 areas of hotspots of crime. We were winning. It didn't last long. By early 2018, 476 crimes had been reported. We were losing. Spice had a terrible impact on the space, and so did the politics. Crime and antisocial behavior was thriving, and we asked ourselves why. Our license only allowed us to effect change on 20% of the site. We came to the conclusion that 3 major factors were out of our control: the political mess, the physical design of the site, and the feel of the environment we operated in. This is my 7th November in the Bear Pit. The promise of a better future is so close. I can see it so clearly. The Circle is much more than just an idea. This vision of for a better place is the culmination of standing in this space for 7 winters, learning, exploring, thinking, challenging what goes on in this space. It's 7 years of despair and hope mashed up together. I've been making coffee for 7 years. It makes me happy. I get to speak to all walks of life, and some of my customers have become my closest friends. I'm comfortable here, but in comfort, there is no growth. In comfort, there is no radical change. Last year, we pledged it was time to shake things up. It was time to really deliver this vision of a safe and welcoming destination that brought the city together, that it was worth fighting for. Someone challenged me recently. You can't possibly change the bear pit. It's always been this way. 3 words come to mind: injustice, hope, and perseverance. Injustice. Martin Luther King once said, "The time is always right to do what is right." If not now, then when? One could argue that the very problem with the bear pit is crime and antisocial behavior, or community versus corporate interests. But in my years, if I really think about what keeps me up at night, what's enraged me the most, and what gives me fire to push forward, would be the injustice we have witnessed on all levels. From dealing with bullies, to being stuck in dysfunctional organizations, to abusive leaders who pursued personal gain at the expense of public funding, or to the drug dealer getting young, naive, and lost youth addicted to drugs. Even worse, the countless vulnerable women who were with men who promised them protection, even though they would beat them to a pulp just because they laughed or said something. The hardest days were the ones where ignorance would triumph in forms of hate crime, of racial and homophobic slurs to members of society who were already entering the space with fear in their eyes. We had seen it all. We took on this role of being guardians of the bear pit, not on our watch. And we suffered for it, but we would never regret it. Hope. J.R. Tolkien once said, "There is some good in this world, and it is worth fighting for." To me, the bear pit will always be this one unique place where you can see the worst of humanity, and on the same day, see how ordinary people, without any expectation, show kindness, showcasing the best of humanity. On February 28, we had over 100 citizens come to our Community Action Day to clean up the space so we could leave it in a better state and reclaim it, even if it was just for one day. It was a dark moment for us. After another attempted assault on myself in order to try and push us out, having made the decision to close down our businesses, we could no longer risk our staff's safety. We felt rather lost and defeated, but we still managed to do what we do best: bring people together. Perseverance, the continued effort to do or achieve something despite difficulties, failure, or opposition. A mural says relentless optimism would sporadically appear at the end of one of the tunnels. It used to really annoy me. Optimism without action is simply making wishes on stars. Our mantra became relentless perseverance. Over the years, I have lost count how many hurdles, how many obstacles, and curveballs have hit us, like I'm sure many of you know. This line of work takes time, it takes dedication, but it also does take its toll on you. We ran a healthy cafe, taking a hit on profit, so we could be more accessible to the public. Having been in the catering world, you realize our food system is broken. The bear pit is broken. For so long, we were stuck at staring at these problems. One day in November 2017, my colleague and I stood in the middle of the bear pit and said, "Enough problems. It's time for solutions." We envisioned a better bear pit, a place where community, food, innovation, and well-being work together to create something truly special. We're going to build Bristol's first green gateway, a new destination that brings the city together. Through circular economy, we're creating a sustainable food hub, showcasing urban farms that provide education and employment opportunities with a retail and independent local food businesses. An incubation center, which will be a partnership with the universities, showcasing and developing technologies to improve efficiency and production of food and energy, to strive for us to become a better sustainable city. A community hub where the greatest minds in Bristol and beyond work together, being energized by other people in the same industry. A well-being center that is truly inclusive, and a community garden like no other. I can see it, I can feel it. The Circle has the power to change the history of the bear pit and the future of Bristol and beyond. We have to strive for sustainability, environmentally, economically, but most importantly, socially. Steve Jobs once said, "Those who are crazy enough to think they can change the world usually do." And the last 2 days have completely reminded me and reaffirmed me of this. The world seems to be getting scarier by the day. We have to learn to work across our diversities, to learn from each other, to grow together, to secure a better future. We know one thing: when we collaborate and bring people together, the space thrives. With one common purpose, we know change is possible. There have been dozens of people and organizations that have been part of our journey that have helped us to this point. And it's their time and dedication over the years that remind us why we do what we do. And despite us entering into a new period of uncertainty, The truth is, this is what we do. We keep going. Thank you very much.
So well done. Well done, you. See? Thank you. Yeah. Okay, Miriam, that's phenomenal. My writer head was going, 7 winters. 7 winters is the most beautiful start to a story. But the idea that if we're doing optimism without action is only wishing on stars is the central point to the story. And the circle is a fantastic concept for an ending of a story. Good storytelling, kid. Okay, I'm going to come over now, and we've got less than 20 minutes, and lunch is coming, sort of like winter. But what I want to do is I just want to speak to the panelists very quickly first, and then I know that there will be people among you, because the thing about us standing on a thing that's a whole foot higher than where you're sitting is you all have this work too. You all do this work too. You all know masses of stories and stuff that could benefit all of us. So I do want to come to you quite quickly. But my first thing, so Miriam talked about things that are enraging and optimistic. And Carolyn talked about starting with people and conversations. And Rebecca talked about trying and improving and making better and it being okay to say so. And David talked about relationships. Between us, that's humanity, as we all know in the room. That's bringing people together. But could you tell me, maybe each of you just quickly, what's most surprised you in the work you've done? What has gone, oh, I didn't know that was going to come, or I wasn't expecting that, or I couldn't have known that. If we hadn't have done this, we wouldn't have got that. Anybody want to start?
I think sometimes.
Can we bring all the mics up, please? Because I don't know who's going to go next. Thank you. That's Miriam, and it's not up. Keep saying words, and then they'll know.
I'll try to just speak very loudly. I think sometimes in all the line of work we do, it can be really isolating. And you can become
Sorry, Miriam. Can you hear at the back? No. Can we save this? Brilliant. Thank you. Perfect.
I think sometimes the work we do is always very isolating. I'm sure I'm speaking for many of us. But actually, what always surprises me and what always keeps me going is that so many people believe in what we do. Yeah. And we just need to stop and remind ourselves that, we do this for people.
Yeah.
And
The taking a breath moment. Yeah.
So, mine is working. So for me, some of the most surprising things have been bringing people together who have never met before, and the kinds of things that come out of that. And then the other thing for me, because my background is as a photographer and filmmaker, is actually how the digital has moved into the making, physically making. And I really like that it's not screen-based, that it's actually making real things in community.
Brilliant. Rebecca, have you got any surprises?
I don't know if it surprises me, but I'm in awe every day of the team around me and the different approaches that a small team of now 7 of us bring. And I love being surprised every day that someone comes at something from
That's a surprise phone call.
That's a surprise.
Yeah.
That someone can approach a challenge from a technology perspective or a human perspective or a take on the hat of the planet. What would they play from this perspective? And that kind of surprise of different disciplines and perspectives, I think, results in something bigger and better than whatever any one of us could.
A lot of what you were talking about was very differently skilled people, but working together.
Exactly. Yeah.
David?
I think part of what, so much of what we've been talking about just now, feels to me like a common sense. You know, we can understand why it works. It's wonderful and it's innovative and it's brilliant, but it is also common sense. Our challenge here is to make that common sense common practice and to take those ideas and to share them with a much, much wider audience than we've got with us today. That's the real challenge, I think. It is common sense, but how do we make it common practice?
So, all right, well, I want to find out, okay? Because seriously, everyone here has talked about things that are scalable, with difficulty, that are iterative. I always struggle with that word. Do you have, any of you, a thought about just one step towards how better we share things? Because the internet is a great way to share things, except sometimes it just gets lost. Conversations are great ways to share things, except sometimes it just gets lost. Do you have any actual examples of where sharing has worked well? Carolyn?
So for us, it's about trying to develop a more commons mindset, a kind of how do we give our ideas so that others can pick them up and develop them. So in a world of tech where IP is constantly debated, it's sort of abandon that, share openly, trust that people will pick up the good ideas and they'll repurpose and reuse them. So I think it's that commons mindset is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. All of the stuff on our website is freely available and takeable, and we want people to do that. How about anybody else? Miriam?
Yeah, I agree with what Caroline says. I think it's just kind of, it's not about us and us owning what we're doing. You know, for me, the success of what we're trying to achieve is getting the city behind it and making everyone feel like they've been part of the process and the journey.
Yeah. Rebecca, you had something.
We say at Library of Things that we believe sharing is in our nature, but not necessarily in our culture. And part of what we're doing is that culture setting and that reminder of here's how to borrow something and bring it back in a way that's ready for your neighbor to borrow, and why don't you borrow something and help do up your community garden, and hey, did you see what Abby did? She came along and borrowed the bread maker and made bread for her, you know, for her elderly neighbor, and isn't that lovely? And so setting that culture through guidelines, through storytelling has been really fundamental to establishing kind of reminding us how to share.
See, I think you just described small acts of kindness. They are so radical. It's so radical to be nice to people, you know. David, your common sense tip?
Well, I think first and foremost, what all four of you have been talking about is just do it. You know, you've got an idea, just get out there and do it, and you get it wrong the first few times and change and learn as you go. I think what it doesn't feel right to me is what government ministers would always have us do, which is as soon as something begins to work, to talk about how do you replicate that in other places, as if there is a blueprint that you can just stick down in other places and it works exactly the same way. I think the essence of the movement here and the essence of the sort of work we've been talking about is that it is locally owned and locally produced. That doesn't mean that you can't take the principles behind it and some of the lessons that we've learned, maybe the hard way, and share them in ways which enable other people to take them forward within their own patch. But what you can't do, I think, is just plonk it down and do the same thing and expect it to work.
One of the things that stunned me, because Fun Palaces was such an accident, is seeing how phenomenally different they are in every place. And that's so thrilling, because people will do things differently. I want to come to you. I understand that there is a temptation to make a statement, not ask a question. And that's fine, because if you have a statement that you think might support other people, we're all tired, we're all pissed off with the systems. If you just want to have a moan, please can you moan to me at lunchtime, and I promise to listen to you, because this is a really good time to bring together all the stuff you've heard, all the stuff you've been working on for 2 days. So would anybody like to add a question, a statement that's going to help us all grab things, take things together and join it up? Anybody? Not too brilliant. One way at the back. Thank you so much. Feel free to say who you are and where you're from if you think that's useful.
Okay, my name's Terry. I'm from the County of Norfolk. I'm a local councillor as well as being active in the community. I think the five of you represent for me innovation in a way and new ideas, which I always love, but so often you come against people who say, it'll never work. Particularly in council meetings, I'm surrounded by people all the time, and it's like, oh my God, you know, we've just got used to the wheel. So, you know, and it is a bit like that. How any advice that you could give a lot of us where we come across people who say, no, it'll never work, you know, and immediately close down new ideas, new suggestions?
My own personal version is a trip to Northern Ireland earlier this year. I was indicated to a room. They said, those are the Polish people, those are the people with mental health problems, that's the school, those are the ex-paramilitaries, don't talk to them, it'll never work. Obviously, I went and talked to the paramilitaries. I talked to the bloke who's a beekeeper. I talked to the man who's a gardener. They have things to contribute to their community. I'm not very good at being told no. I think it's really useful to ignore it. Not the inner no, not the personal no that we all feel. That's a really useful thing to pay attention to, but the outside no. Anyone else?
I think my response is, okay, so what's your great idea? Something isn't working. So there's nothing to lose by taking a risk and trying things. And I think we live in a culture that is so, and we see this in children all the time at the moment that we're working with. Tell me what's the right answer. Well, we don't know the answer because we would have solved it. So take some risks, try some things, and give us the space to do that.
Anyone else with a...
I wonder if there's examples of the things they're saying no to that do already exist in the world. Whether they can go and experience those and visit those and see them for themselves, or at least hear a story about how it is working somewhere.
I get that people are risk averse, but it is... my background is in improvisation, and we don't just say yes, we say yes and. And yes and is where the action comes.
I think also, Terry, you're a councillor, and sometimes it is councils and statutory bodies that are most inclined to say it won't work. And I think sometimes from our side of the table, we're a little bit inclined to come along and say, here is a wonderful idea, and then be surprised if the response is not what we are expecting. And I think that sometimes is because we've not thought through what are the questions that these people on the other side of the table want an answer to. How is what we are offering an answer to their question? We just pitch something that we think is utterly wonderful. And I think trying to be a little bit more considerate on our side of the table about the kind of questions that the people we are talking to need the answer to, and how what we are providing helps to provide that answer.
Because it's conversations with the no-sayers as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Anybody else? Hello, one over here. Run like the wind. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sian Williams from Toynbee Hall in London, and obviously we'd love to work with Community Links, which we do already, but let's talk afterwards. But my question is, so I often think I'm really brave and really kind of getting up and do things, but most of the time I have an internal critic that says, you're not good enough, you can't make this happen, don't be silly if someone else hasn't done this, it can't be a good idea. And in a way, I kind of want an internet of encouragement. And my kind of question to you as individuals is, how do you overcome those voices, and how might we as a community work together to help each other? And Stella, you did some lovely things about getting us to look each other in the eyes and be supportive to each other. And given that we're so busy and tired, how can we be doing more of that and helping each other work through our internal fears to kind of do the incredible brave things that we are all trying to do?
Great question, thank you. Do you want anybody want to take it, grab it?
I live with imposter syndrome every single day of my life.
And me.
Like when I was told I had to speak in front of this many people, I was like, are you sure? Like I work in a roundabout, I make coffee. But you have to, it's true. Yeah. But you have to know that you're the only person who can share your passion and your story, and you do have something to offer. And I think if we can convince even the wider world that we all have something to offer and share, then, we'll be in a better place.
Brilliant, absolutely. Carolyn?
I think for me, it's very often stepping out of wherever I am, an office or whatever, and going speaking to some of the young people that come through our doors or out in the community, and just listening to them, and then it's not about my lack of confidence. It's about making sure that they have confidence.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I find it helpful to be in a work environment where people are doing similar things and they're saying, oh God, I'm terrified today, I think this is going wrong, I've been judged for that, I'm really being negative at myself for this reason, and just being like, okay, let's support each other out and help each other. Yeah, a kind of big, thriving workspace of other social enterprises and community businesses helps me.
I think, Caroline, your internet of encouragement, or whatever the phrase was you used, should be your next project. I think that's a terrific idea. For me, it's anger and injustice that gets me up in the morning and keeps me going. And I think keeping that at the front of your mind, that is why we do what we do, even though we might spend quite a lot of our time managing buildings or spreadsheets or whatever it might be, just reminding ourselves what is the purpose of what we're doing, thinking about how is it that we've got food banks now, which when I last attended a locality conference wasn't a thing, but now we have them all over the place. Our country's going backwards. Being motivated by that sort of injustice is what we need to keep reminding ourselves of and keeping alive.
All of that. And 2 book recommendations. Tara Moore's Playing Big. It's a bit American for people who don't want things that are too yay, rah, but God, she speaks well, particularly to women, and we know that there are more women working in community, not that men shouldn't read it. And I can't remember the writer, but it's called Zen Leadership. And I did this whole, oh my God, I can't lead a thing. How can I possibly lead a thing? Mega imposter syndrome, like I'm sure all of us have all the time. It's called Zen Leadership, and I found it really useful. I think it's really okay to say we're scared as well. I'm scared almost every day. I was really nervous on the train this morning before coming and doing this, because I said to Tony, what do you want me to do? And he said, be inspiring. So, oh, sure, I've got that one. But it is about the people. I started my speech with saying I wanted to look at you. When we look at each other, when we see each other, we do get reminded, as David said, we are bloody lucky to be sitting here and waiting for our lunch until 2 o'clock, We're not climbing up a hill to a well to get some water. We're not somebody who has to go and speak to Miriam because we can't get a coffee from anywhere else. I know it doesn't always help on the really hard days, but the bit where I remember that I have some good fortune even on a shitty day really does help me a bit more, and I do think a massive sense of rage about injustice is really useful. Constant rage, and then conversations with nice people. Okay, 2.5 minutes. Yeah, do you want to fight for the last? Why don't we take both of your questions, just in case we can join them up? There were 2 of you in that middle section. Keep waving so you make sure you get the microphone. That's it. Here's one coming to you in the front. You go.
Hello, it's not a question, so it's quite simple. I'm Colin Crooks from Tree Shepherd. We run a small organisation in South London, and this is my first conference. Never come
Welcome.
to before. Thank you. My motto has always been go with the energy. Go with people who want to do stuff with you and ignore the negative people.
Go with the who? Sorry, missed that
bit. The people that want to do stuff with you, the positive people. And we've had quite a few problems over the last couple of weeks. We had a stabbing outside our place. We've had a lot of criticism locally in another place. And this conference has completely energized me. I feel surrounded by positive people, and I'm going to go back to work tomorrow and engage the demons. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. And the other one? Hello.
Hi. Less of a question, more of an offer. Putting my imposter syndrome aside, the evidence says that when we do something new, we tend to underestimate the time and money cost by about 40%. I'm as bad at that as anybody else, despite the fact that I'm supposed to be adjusting business models along the way. So my offer is, when you've done those first couple of versions and you've worked out how you would change the product or service, but if you want a hand changing the business model, that's my offer.
Wow. What's your name, sorry?
Sarah.
Sarah who?
Sarah Thelwall.
And how will people find you?
I'm wearing orange trousers.
Perfect. Sarah Thelwall of the Orange Trousers. We could make more offers to each other. We could put aside our imposter syndromes, because we all live with them, in order to go, I might have an offer that is worth making. And those things will give us not just the internet of positivity and the places where our vulnerabilities get held, but the change that we're all making. Thank you all to my panelists, to Miriam, to Carolyn, to Rebecca, to David. Thank you to you, Tony.
Thank
Great to hear. You're great. It's great to hear that. Thank you.
I actually feel slightly emotional. That was such a good session. Thank you so much for all of you. I thought people have been saying on social media it was so inspirational. So thank you.
Well done. Really well done.
And I think, Stella, you did meet my requirements of being inspirational. You always are. Well done. So we have reached the end of the formal session, but it's not the end of the convention because we've got lunch coming up, and it's the final chance for you to do the things I taught you yesterday. So, anybody want to remind the people or teach the people who've only been here today what we learned yesterday? So this is a way of, sometimes we all feel a little bit stupid coming into a room and trying to break into conversations with people. So embrace that awkwardness and do it on purpose and do mingle, mingle, mingle. And lots of people have been doing it. It was kind of going around on Twitter. Has anybody made any good contacts from doing it? Yeah, see, it works. So you've got 1 hour left to do all of the mingling with people as you have your lunch. The exhibitions are open as well, so make sure you go and talk to them and pick up some interesting tips as well as meeting each other. The exhibition is going to be open until 3 o'clock, so stay, have your lunch and network. I'd like to do a few thank yous. I'd like to thank our convention exhibitors and our sponsors. In particular, I mention our main sponsors, Power to Change and NatWest, as well as our other sponsors, Ensley, Anthony Collins, LiveWest, Unity Trust Bank, CCLA, and all the exhibitors. Thank you very much. A massive thank you to all of you. You make this convention, you make this, everybody has said it, so inspirational, so supportive. It's 2 days of the year where I think, I look forward to it so much. It recharges my batteries. I feel motivated at the end of this. I think this one has been particularly good for that. I think this has been great atmosphere and sense of community among everybody here. So thank you, because you've made that possible. We would really like your feedback, so we'll be sending around some feedback forms today via email, but we'd really like to get your tips and suggestions on how we can build on convention for next year and future years. If you've had a good talk with one of our members of staff, and many people have, I was watching it in the pub at least last night, remember, members get 20 minutes free expert advice with our members, so with our staff members, so talk to our staff if you've got any particular ideas or projects, and we've got cards you can fill out if you'd like us to help you in a bit more of an in-depth way too. We've been collecting all your photographs, and we're now going to unveil the creative work of our very own Amani by putting them all together, if we can see that on the screen. Music as well.
Oh, brilliant.
That was excellent. So you'll be able to see that. We'll probably be putting that on our website and sharing it on social media, so you'll be able to have a look. It's also the last chance to enter the photo competition. I know you were all very excited yesterday at the prize on offer. What was it? It was a free place for next year's convention. Woohoo! It's not a speedboat, but it's worth a lot. So taking your photographs and posting your photographs with the hashtag Locality18, and we'll be picking a winner, and we'll announce the winner in the follow-up email over the next few days. So I'd like to finally say thank you to all the people who make this convention go so smoothly. It's like a well-oiled machine, and it's the people who work on it are swan-like. They look graceful on the surface, but it's all a lot of work for many months to make this work. So, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody who took part, all of our members and our staff members who took part in the workshops, people who've hosted visits and expert sessions. So thank you to them for taking part. The two conference organisers, they're probably not in the room, but Anne and Rob Buchanan, who are our conference consultants, organisers, friends and members of our kind of wider locality family. They're brilliant. This is their 19th convention that they've been doing for us and our kind of predecessor organisations, and they're a joy to work with, so thank you very much to them. I think we are absolutely blessed because the locality staff team is the best staff team group of people in the world. So huge thank you to all of the staff team at Locality. I'm sure you all are saying they're brilliant. And in particular, special thanks go to Amani and to Sarah, who have put in the most work over the last few weeks and months in terms of making this convention work smoothly and efficiently. So thank you to you two in particular. So we'll see you next year. What are you going to do over the next hour? Yes, well trained, good. Don't be a stranger. Keep in touch over the next year. Enjoy your lunch and see you soon. Thank you very much.